They asked what I do, and I forgot to speak like a human being.
I launched into my coaching spiel like it was a TED Talk in a hotel lobby.
Then they hit me with, "Oh, I know what I need to do."
Cool. So glad my identity could be your light bulb moment.
Coach, please. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mindful Coaching Excellence Institute. I am Dan.
And I am Monsalit. And today we are having a conversation about sometimes awkward positions we as coaches find ourselves in. And so, Dan, I want to tell you a little story that happened to me this weekend. It was Sunday, yesterday to be exact, and I was out visiting with some friends. They invited me to a church. So I went to this church, check it out. And afterwards, everybody's congregating in the lobby. And this woman comes over, starts making conversation, asks me what I do. I start to tell her. And before I know it, she's asking me, well, as a coach, what are you coaching these business owners on? And what are you saying to them? And well, I have a business and I'm trying to have, from this business to go to that business, what would you say? I mean, what would you tell me if I was your client right now? And so here I am completely not in my coaching hat. I'm on my day off, enjoying my time. And it was great having this conversation, but I sort of found myself first overly talking about what I did within my sessions. I didn't feel prepared at all. And at the end of our conversation, her takeaway, which I think we've both sometimes talked about, was okay, yeah, like I kind of already know what I need to do. It's like what you're telling me that you tell them, I already know all that. So yeah, like I think I'll, figure it out. And then we got interrupted, and that was the end of it. But I walked away thinking, once again, I had an opportunity that I didn't probably really handle the best that I could have. And two, I've met multiple people that want to know what you do as a coach because they're inquiring, but then they realize they don't really need a coach because they have all the answers, which we do know that people have all the answers. But it was very tricky. So I'm just curious, what is going through your mind as I'm telling you this story?
There's so many things going through my mind because this is an experience I think probably every coach in the world has gone through. And for those of you who know my thing on absolutes, for me to say that every coach has gone through it, this is a really human experience. And the thing to recognize here is we're not in that element. We when we're thinking about sitting in the office space where we know we're in the environment, we know we're showing up as a coach, it's easier to be coach like. But in a situation, and I go through it too, so I'm not preaching from the top of the mountain here. I'm in the mud with you at times because it's things that goes on. When we're meeting people socially or professionally networking and somebody asks us what we do or what would you say to me, it's so easy in that moment to not be in coach mode because we're not conditioned to it there, but instead go into sales mode or solving mode because why do we do it? Because we want them to hire us. Let's be honest. Oh, I can solve this is what I would do for you because we want to contribute value. And it's weird how when we're in those different situations, the different side of us comes up then I want to know a little bit more. Let's set a time to really sit down and talk because there's a lot going on here. And being more in that curiosity. But that's the first thing that comes forward.
Oh, yeah. When you just said that, I had that aha moment. Like, here I was doing all the talking. Because I was put on the spot. And so, almost in a nervous way, I was doing all the talking. But yeah, I should have probably turned it around and been like, well, tell me what's going on. Like, what's really going on with you? So instead of answering her questions about how I coach, who I coach, how I coach them, what are their problems, what is it they're having you do for them, I should have just turned it back to her and been, what is it you're looking for?
Hmm. And even at the end, when she, as you shared, she had the recognition, if I know everything I need to be doing, well, you're not. So
Right.
it that could turn into a, so you know, but you're not. That's what I help people with, is getting past those blocks when they know what they should be doing, but they're not doing it.
Yeah.
Let's get on a call.
Yeah. And I wasn't necessarily, when I walked away, I didn't even think, that was a sell I could have had. It was just more of a feeling, which I think so many coaches who, when they're in their own element outside of work or in, like you said, the office and the space where we're putting the coaching hat on, it's like I sort of walked away going, wow, there was an opportunity that I could have done differently, sell or no sell, that I could have interacted differently and I didn't. Even the way I found myself stuck trying to explain what I did, I didn't even like that I was sort of allowing myself to be put in that place versus, as you said, asking her more of the questions. And it almost brings us to, as you know, we have our flagship program, which is the 8 core competencies, which is our flagship program in our school for continuing education credits. Yes, this is a shameless plug, but what I'm thinking about when I say that is when you think about two of the core competencies, right? What are the two that come to mind that could help us if we think about those in these kinds of settings?
Honestly, I'm potentially thinking of three.
Okay.
So the first one we've already talked about, and that is core competency two, maintaining a coaching presence, or maintaining coaching, being a coach. Because rather than getting pulled over into that sales or solving in the moment, which is so easy to do in networking, because there's so much going on in that room, there's so many distractions. It's easy us for, let's try that again. It's easy for us to fall out of our coaching way of being and move into some other quick solve or something else in conversation. So that's one, is being a coach. Presence comes up big, core competency 5, of how can we, prior to a session, which is also core competency 2, create a ritual space for ourselves to set ourselves up for success when we're in the space. So we would do it before a session. How could we do that prior to a networking meeting, even though we
But
don't
what
know
if you're
what's
not
coming?
networking? What if you're just going to an everyday or every weekly occasion? And what if you're going to a wedding? Should you step into that presence of coaching?
It depends. Are you one of the two people on the altar?
No.
In that case, I would probably park it all.
If you're the bride or
That's a
groom,
tough one.
don't be in the presence. But yeah, so that's the thing, right? Like, how do we use these core comps when we're in that room, but what about when we're just in our recreational time, when we're off the clock? I mean, a lot of times our connections
Yeah.
happen off the clock.
Even more reason to get them to say, let's talk. There's a lot here. Let's talk about it later.
Yeah, let's do a call. I'd love to have a conversation. And you had a third one, a third core comp
Let's
that came
see.
up.
Core Comp 3,
Mm,
establishing and maintaining agreements. What are we talking about here? So we think about holding the space for someone. This is important to them because they're talking to us about it.
yeah.
And they've said, I know what I need to do, but I'm not doing it. There's something deeper. So let's have that conversation rather than entering into a conversation that isn't necessarily going to serve them or us in this, here's this idea, and then they walk away with something that they're not going to do anyway. I really want to honor the time, and let's schedule a time to sit down and talk. There's no obligation, nothing else. I'd really just like to understand more what's going on. And honestly, this is a conversation that is bigger than the time we have here. And there's too many distractions here today. I want to be fully present for you. Make it invitational, make it to their benefit, because it will ultimately be to your benefit, whether they hire you, which is the obvious initial financial benefit, but also being of service and being fully of service. Even if they don't hire you, they will remember you showing up for them with 100% attention, that you took their problem seriously and graced them with time to talk about it in the way nobody else would. That will pay dividends downstream.
I love
Which is
that.
also coaching presence.
Yeah, yeah. So it's what I'm hearing you say is like, all right, how do we take being a coach, the presence and the agreement out into everyday life, even when we're just out having a fun time or out not to at all be thinking about coaching, but
Mm-hmm.
it is where we end up making connections because coaching
Mm-hmm.
is about connecting with other people. So it makes sense. And let me ask you this. I mean, if the coach, whether it's me in this circumstance or another coach, if they happen to see that person again, I still have a shot to go back and say, hey, I was thinking all week about your situation. I just wanted to know more about it. Maybe you'd like to jump on a call with me.
Yeah, the other thing that pops forward, kind of sidebar to what you just said, that if we're out, we're in personal time, we're with friends, interacting with friends, other things. We're not in the professional networking, maybe going to a Chamber of Commerce meeting or other professional meeting where it's expected. Here, we're just out meeting people socially. What comes forward is it's an honoring of a personal boundary too. Are you in personal mode here of this is my time to recharge me? Do you allow that boundary to flex and or be broken by going into professional mode of now being on the clock without being on the clock? So there could be some movement there of like the recognition of this is my time for me. Oh, and there's an opportunity here. How do I embrace both without getting sucked into not being fully of service?
And what if the coach is in a place where it's like, hey, this is my personal time and I don't want to go there professionally and I don't really want to talk about it and this isn't a client that I would want to take on. What might be a way they would handle it differently than I did?
So I hear two different things there. So I'm being very coach-like right now. There's the level of this is my personal time. So we might just, I really want to go into the curiosity mode. I really would love to hear more about this, and I'm a little distracted right now, so I would not serve you well in this moment. And this sounds really important. Let's schedule a time. Let's set some time this week or whenever to actually set some time and talk. The other one is, what if you really don't want to work with them anyway? You're already getting that vibe. You could gracefully say that is not the work you do. That, as Rich Litvin would say it, I'm a gracious no. Or maybe you know somebody who might vibe with that person well. I know somebody. I'd like to know a little bit more. Let's hop on a brief conversation. And I think I might know someone that I could refer you to.
All right. And now I'm going to give you my last scenario here for this,
What?
which is what if the person, is just trying to make conversation? It's kind of like saying, hey, what do you do for a living? Oh, that's what you do. Wow, that's so cool. So like, tell me more about that. Okay. And then they kind of talk about themselves a little. But what if really they never had there's no real intention other than they're just trying to make small talk? How do you as a coach decipher what that looks like? Because again, right, you're not in a professional setting. It's almost like I don't want to come across professional when I'm in this casual setting of just being who I am on my day off. What could that look like?
First thing that comes up is the person who's just making conversation for the sake of making conversation. You will pick up a semi-disinterested energy from them of like their follow-up questions won't be connected to what they asked before and what you just said, the way a coach's might be within a session, just to drop that little hint. There are going to be tangents. They're going to be trying to guide the conversation, or they'll be totally disinterested and you just feel like you're slapping a tennis ball back and forth just for the sake of sound waves to go through the air so there isn't uncomfortable silence. But you show up and you share as much as you can, and you show up to let someone know how you serve the world.
I love that.
It either lands or it doesn't.
It either lands or it doesn't. So I think that's it for this episode. I can't wait for our next episode. Stay tuned. Any things you want to say before we leave today?
It just reminds me of how when you asked of what core competencies does it tie into, some level it ties into all of them at one sense or another. But we have created our flagship training, Mystery to Mastery, Practical Insights into the 8 core competencies. And we will link that below if you would like to understand more of how this guiding framework, the gold standard in coaching, applies into both being a coach in session, and also how it might apply into being a coach and embodying coaching in the world as you go out to let people know what you do and how you serve. You might enjoy the rest of the training. So we'll have that link in the comments below.
And just to leave with that training is 16 core comp credits, 15 go to core comps, 1 goes to resource and development. So if you're like us, renewing your credentials, it's a really good training to get those hours.
Because one thing that Monsolite and I are both committed to is that this school is exclusively for experienced coaches who are dedicated to changing the world. We both want to see the seriousness of coaching, the bar raised, so that this field is no longer the fodder for stand-up comedians and punchlines for sitcoms. This is serious stuff, and we take it seriously, even though we have a whole lot of fun doing it. So if you are dedicated to this industry, please join us on our mission. We invite you to ride along.
All right. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Be well.